Good evening. Maayong gabi sa atong tanan karon. It's a wonderful, wonderful evening. And tonight will be even more special because you have given yourselves this time. We would like to thank you for being around tonight despite your busy schedules. Karong gabi is something which perhaps we have been waiting for. Special event tonight.
Karon pag yung ko na kuyawi nga mo introduce. I grew up introducing people. But since I was young, every time I introduce speakers or browse over their CVs, I offer a special prayer and make a solemn wish that the Lord would allow me to become like the person I am introducing. Bisag matakdan lang ko o gamay. Kanang matakdan ko sa ilang lana. But for our speaker tonight, musugot ka ikog dako. Matakdan kog dako kaayo. Labi na gyud sa kabuutan o sa kagwapa. Anyway, I really volunteered to introduce her tonight because of my profound admiration for her character and my great appreciation of her competence. So my friends, isog kaay ko karon. Unya, magkodigo para bagyog ko. Imagine she's been working and going around the world, more than 100 countries, doing many things. Unyang kanang mga 100, more than 1,000 things she did, ibutang lang nako gamay nga papel. So allow me to browse over and cheat a little bit. Sister Jayanti, the European director of the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University, is like a very valuable perfume stored in a small bottle. She has been for over 40 years an emissary for peace with a vision and experience that is truly global and deeply spiritual. She has that unique ability to impart the deepest thoughts, the deepest truths with utmost clarity. As a result, Sister Jayanti has traveled extensively to more than 100 countries as a keenly sought-after speaker and broadcaster. So she was broadcasting for BBC because she grew up in London. She went to London when she was 8 years old, Indian by birth, schooled in London, but now she belongs to the world. We are part of that. Her prominent lectures included health, education, racial harmony, women's needs, religions of the world, sustainability, peace, international relations, and many others. More importantly, she continues to provide spiritual support to the BK centers of the world, like what she's doing with us now in the Philippines. Having been afforded by the Lord with lots of talents, Sister Jayanti did not keep it to herself. Instead, she wholeheartedly shared it to others as the university's main representative to the UN in Geneva, Switzerland. In fact, she has participated in many UN conferences and projects. She is the advisor to the Council for the Parliament of the World's Religions. I wanted to underscore the world's religions, and she's part of the council. She's not just a member, but really she is at the head, at the helm. In the meantime, Sister Jayanti is also participated in the preparation of the Earth Charter during the Kagwapa sa akong stand. She's also a member of the International Committee of the World's Congress of Faiths and is in the advisory body of the International Interfaith Center. Murag karon patana kadungog, no? So she is in the advisory body. That's why if Sister Jayanti would speak about religions, it's not the same as when she speaks about spirituality. So today we are here and we are in for spirituality. We'll not be discussing religion. She has numerous international affiliations and cooperations, very significant of which is her interest in the dimension of spirituality and the environment, the sustainability of Mother Earth, and her very strong advocacy for the respect for all forms of life. You know, in India, in Madhuban, they have their lots and lots of bees just there on their ceilings. And people just pass by, nobody gets hurt. Nobody steps on the bees which are there on the floor. And nobody has been bitten by them. So the great respect for any form of life is really very evident. In fact, Sister Jayanti participated in the preparations, as I mentioned, the preparation of the Earth Charter. She is a very valuable tool for making Earth survive. She has authored many beautiful books, the useful ones like Meditation for Extremely Busy People. You can start ordering. And Relaxing the Mind. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the meantime, let us relax and enjoy the sharing of this genteel lady and experience peace and harmony like you have never experienced before. Brothers and sisters, a very precious gem among the women of the world, Sister Jayanti Kirplani, the harbinger of peace and happiness.
Thank you for those very warm words of welcome. And yes, it is my honor and my pleasure to be here with you tonight. I've had the opportunity of visiting the Philippines many times, but this is my first visit to this beautiful part of the country. My assumption is that all of you feel that it is possible to open the keys of happiness. Is that right? Good. This is why you've let go of your other responsibilities and you've decided to be here with us tonight. Let me take you through the steps that I myself have experienced in terms of discovering the secret of happiness. Firstly, it's a question of responsibility. When I realized that I don't have to wait for circumstances to become perfect. Are they likely to get perfect in the next year or 2 years or even 3 years? Do you think so? Unlikely. So if I wait for circumstances to be perfect before I become happy, I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait. If I wait for people around me to make me happy, again, I have no idea when that's going to happen. And so I decide to take responsibility for myself. And spirituality teaches me that I'm responsible for creating my own thoughts. Do you agree? I'm speaking to all of you who know all these secrets. But yes, I'm responsible for my thoughts. I'm also responsible for my feelings, because thoughts and feelings are very directly connected, and we might not have been aware of that. But as soon as you start the inner journey, it becomes very evident that that's what is so. And so firstly, I take responsibility to create the quality of thoughts, to create the quality of feelings that's going to create happiness within my own inner world. I won't wait for the world outside to do something, but I'll do something about it for myself within. The second is, I make a conscious choice. It's interesting that we don't always realize that we have to make a choice to be happy. We think that, well, life flows along, and whichever way the tide turns, I'm going to be carried by the flow of the tide. If the winds move in one direction, I'll go there. If they move in another direction, I'll be carried there. But I believe that human beings have a very special capacity, and that is the ability to make choices. And whichever situation I find myself in, I can choose whether to be happy within that situation, or I can choose to be upset about it, or I can choose to change my circumstances and situation so that I can create a situation where I can be happy. And I know that that sounds a very tall order, but if you spend a little bit of time reflecting on the validity of this, you'll see that that is absolutely true. We have a choice. For example, in our relationship with each other, whatever it is you say, whatever it is you do, it's my choice as to how it is I respond to you. And my correct choice of response is then going to bring me peace of mind, inner contentment, and happiness within. And whatever it is you say and do, if I simply react to that without consciously making a choice, then of course my reaction is going to bring more reactions. And I think you all know very well the whole story of action and reaction and stronger actions and more reactions. Is there anyone who doesn't know this story? We're all very, very familiar with it. And so it's a choice I make. Whatever the situation is, whatever it is others may say or do, I choose what is going to be my response to that. All of this sounds as if it's very much head work, responsibility, making a choice, and it isn't so much work, it's more a question of awareness. Because most times it feels as if we're leading our life on such a superficial plane that we don't take time to actually think deeply about purpose, meaning, significance. All these are words that are not very fashionable. If you ask most young people, well, what is the purpose of your life? And I don't think many people have had a chance to think about it, especially if they're young. But that I can understand. But the crazy thing is when somebody is in their 30s and 40s, or even 50s, or even 60s, and you ask them, what is the purpose of your life? And they tell you, well, I've been so busy just living life, just existing, that I actually haven't had time to think about it. And so if I don't know where I'm going, what the purpose of my life is, how is it possible for me to make a conscious decision about the path that's going to actually get me there? And so tonight we're going to see how choice is also very much a part of the key to happiness. I can choose my reactions, my responses to people. I can choose my reactions and responses to situations. I was with a woman who had lung cancer, and I happened to be with her connections, and she arrived at the meditation center in London through long distance connections. And as soon as she arrived, she was coughing a lot. And she said to me, "Please don't be worried, it's not infectious." But she just asked for some water, and then through our chat, she was sipping away at the water. And she told me that she had a choice to make. She had a choice as to whether she would feel guilty that she was being a burden on her family, or whether she was going to say that now I have the time and space to do the things that up until now I've never given myself time to. I've kept myself so busy that I haven't given my husband and my children the time that I could have given. And she said, "This is why I've come to learn meditation, because I know that meditation can help me make that choice and have the courage and the power and the faith to be able to keep that choice." Can you imagine? Here was a woman who was given just a few months to live. And I know that there are medical people here, and lung cancer, as far as I have seen in several cases, usually claims its victims within the space of months. And sure enough, I first met her last November, and by April she had departed. But the last few months, what she did was to give a lot of happiness to her family, her grown-up children and her husband, so that they could feel that the relationship that they had was something which was very special and precious. Now, this was a conscious choice she made. She could have very well said, "Well, now I'm sick, I'm going to die, and now everybody else has to care for me and look after me. I've served them the whole of my life." Well, you know the story. But she knew that she had a choice, and she chose a very beautiful, positive choice that has left very sweet memories in the hearts of those whom she's left behind. I'm talking about a very severe situation, but each day of our lives, from little decisions to big decisions, we forget that nobody is pushing us into doing anything. You know, one of the things that happens in life today is that usually it's a culture of complain and blame. You know about that? I'm sure you do. And so it's much easier to complain, much easier to blame than to take responsibility and to know that I have a choice in this situation. If really I'm not able to sort things out in the way that's comfortable for me, clarity, peace inside my own heart and my own mind mean that I'm able to look and see, well, what are the choices that I have? And I'll probably see alternatives that I'd never imagined existed before. And so I think the second key to happiness really has to be to know that I am the master of my own destiny. Do you believe that? great. So there are many people who don't. There are many people who say, well, circumstances, or some people who say the government. But no, I am the master of my own destiny. And so that's the second key that I have if I want to choose a life of happiness. The third key that I have is to say that I know that I am a unique personality, a unique individual, and what I have, nobody else has. Yes, what I have is also many treasures that are in common with others, and I want to come back to that in a minute. But I also know that there is no one in the whole wide world who has a personality which is like mine. I'm not saying better or worse, but I'm just saying unique. There is no one who has a personality like I do. No one who carries the same memories that I hold in my mind, in my treasure store, because each one of us has had a journey in life which is very, very different and very, very unique. And yes, we come together, we move apart and come together again, but the tapestry of my life is absolutely a beautiful one, which is completely different to the tapestry of yours. When I know that, then I know that the contribution that I can make to the world around me is also absolutely unique. Now, you'll say, but how is that a key to happiness? Well, it doesn't take too much time to reflect on it, because so much of our time and energy and the power of happiness that we hold in ourselves that gets drained away is because we get into comparison. Now just look back over the last week maybe, and you'll see how at one moment everything was fine, you were feeling quite okay, it was good. Next moment, you started comparing yourself with somebody else. And as soon as comparison starts, probably the next thing that will happen is competition will start, right? And then as soon as competition starts, the next thing that's likely to happen is that criticism will start. And so I'll want to prove that I am right and everybody else is not so. And so the third key to happiness is to know my own personality and the uniqueness of my personality. When you look at a real tree, and I'm thinking about the contrast of silk trees, and they put up beautiful plants around us, and I know for sure they're real, they're not silk. But if you have a look at the real plant, the real tree, even though it's the leaves of one tree, and there's countless leaves in the tree, but every single one of the leaves is different. Have you tried matching up two leaves from the same tree? You're going to have a tough time. It's just not possible. Yes, they're the same species, they're the same tree, maybe even the same branch. But yet, each one will be slightly different. Each one will be unique. And if I find a silk tree, I'll probably want to not keep it in my home. But yes, that will be manufactured. And so, yes, everything will be identical. Everything will have been made in a mold. And so, yes, you'll see things that are the same. Human beings weren't created in a mold. Human beings have been created uniquely. And so each one is absolutely unique. And when I appreciate that, there's no ego about it, because I also then appreciate the uniqueness of each and every other human being. And that leads me to the fourth key. And that is, all of these things are really part of the journey inwards, but responsibility and choice and uniqueness all help me turn my attention inwards till the point where I go to the inner being that I am. When I come to that inner being and I give myself quality time to look at myself, and the strangest thing is that it's actually an indicator of how little we value ourselves, that we don't give time to ourselves. And I do see that both things are absolutely synonymous. If I value someone, I make time for them, right? If I'm dismissive about somebody, I don't value them so much, I'll make excuses and say, oh, I've got this, I've got this, I've got the other, I've got the other. And it might be true, I do have all those other things. But if I value someone, I'm going to sort out things so that I make time for them, because I appreciate being with them. So how much time do I give myself? Am I too busy to give time to myself? Well, if I am, that's a very, very clear indication of how much I value, or rather, I don't value myself. And so when I start recognizing this and I go on that journey inwards, I discover the true beauty of the self. I discover that I have treasures that I didn't know about, or at least I'd forgotten about, or I'd ignored, which means that going inwards, yes, there'll be the turmoil of the waves of thoughts that come from here and there. There'll also be the things that I've been avoiding looking at, such as the anxieties, the concerns, the fears. I've been too busy and put them out of my mind, and when I give myself space and silence, all of these things keep coming in. But I persevere, a little bit of patience, and I go inside, deeper and deeper. And I come to that center point of stillness that is there within me, the point of peace, Om Shanti, my original state of being of peace. And so turning inwards, I find the fourth key, the key to the treasures within. Peace, but it doesn't stop there. Once I discover the treasure of peace, I then also discover the treasure of love. Think about the times when you've been with your family and you've come home after work, and these are the people you love the most, you value the most in your life. And yet, because your mind is restless, it hasn't come to grips with the things that have been going on through the day. There's just been too many things you've been bombarded with. The economic climate, the problems with trade unions, the problems with government, all the things that go on in one's world today. And instead of leaving those things behind at work which is where you should. Once you shut the door, the work is left there. And you come home and you take the time to be with your family, to enjoy their company, and to give them some benefit of yourself, to give them something of yourself, so that as your children grow up, they can feel the treasures that you have shared with them. Now, those of you who are my age, or maybe even younger than me, or maybe even older than me, will remember that your most precious memories are not the toys that your parents bought you, or even of the entertainment places that they took you to. The memories will be of the times that you spent with them, the things they shared with you, the things they learned, they taught you and you learned from them. Those will be the precious memories that you hold in your heart. Now, is this the legacy that I'm leaving my children also? Am I giving them my quality time and attention so that then they're able to keep those special gifts with themselves? But of course, instead what happens is that we bring home all the burden and all the load from work. And in that state of peacelessness, we forget that families are for loving, families are for sharing. And so we're not able to give them that love and that care and share that each one needs so much. And of course, once our families don't receive that from us, they seek other solutions. They seek things with friends outside. They seek amusements and entertainments that are not necessarily the best thing for them. But in a way, it's like we've pushed them in that direction. They wouldn't have gone in that direction if we created that family and that environment in which they were being sustained. And so definitely, the prerequisite to be able to experience love is peace. When I can experience peace within, then I'm able to share love with a generous heart and open heart with others. The fifth key of happiness. Here in the Philippines, it's very easy to talk about God. And so I have no hesitation in saying this, that yes, I have those treasures within myself, but it's only when I connect with the one above, with the supreme, with the divine, that I actually discover these treasures within myself. If I'm trying to do it on my own, it's a little bit difficult. But when I spend time, yes, focusing inwards, coming to the awareness of my own inner world, and then letting my mind feel the sacred presence of the divine. In that connection, I feel the qualities from the source of peace and love reach me, touch me, and open up my own inner treasures also. Most times when I'm busy, and there are two very interesting perspectives of busyness. One is where you say that, of course, I have to be busy. If I'm not busy, what does that mean? It means I'm not such a useful person to society. And so we think being busy is actually a very positive attribute. And yes, using my time in a worthwhile way is important, no question about that. But Dadi Janki, and some of you know Dadi Janki, she's a 93-year-old yogi who uses 18 hours of her time serving, and yet she'll say, I'm not busy. And she says that being busy is an excuse for being lazy. amazing. Now, where does she come up with that from? And what she means is that we occupy ourselves in all the external things that, yes, life needs and things that need to happen. But so much of that could happen automatically. You set the machine going and it's going to carry on. And it doesn't need your mind to be engrossed in it. And the lazy bit comes because the things that I should be giving attention to, my awareness of the divine, my attention to my own inner world, and the quality of my thoughts and feelings, I'm lazy. I don't want to do that inner work. And so being busy becomes a fantastic excuse in which I say, well, I don't have time for these things. But no, it's actually the laziness of intellect, the laziness of consciousness, in which I know that this is important, but I'm avoiding the issue. And so being lazy. The things that I get involved with, I could deal with very easily. But I engross myself in those things to move away from the most important things of life. And so making time for the self to go inwards. The fifth, making time to be with the Creator. How often do I make time to be with the Creator? When was the last time you had a heart-to-heart conversation with the Creator? Was it last Christmas? Maybe it wasn't even then. Maybe you were too busy preparing Christmas dinner and Christmas gifts and parties. Maybe it was New Year's Eve and you were thinking about resolutions. Or maybe you were too busy with parties to even think at that time. Maybe it was at a funeral. Now that's usually a time. But if that's the only time I give to having a conversation with a Creator, what sort of quality of relationship is it? You know, if there's a friend I meet only at funerals, well, what sort of friend is that? But you can see what I mean. That if there's a being I love, then surely that relationship is exclusive to one day of the week, or 1 hour of the week, or even 1 hour of the day. A relationship is a relationship and it's ongoing. And so it isn't that in the morning, this one is my mother or my father, and in the afternoon when I'm busy, they're not my mother and father. It's an ongoing relationship and it goes on through life. And in this case, it's a relationship which is an eternal one, an eternal bond that I've forgotten about. And so time again to bring back that into my focus. You know, when things go wrong, you have a little bit of space and you ask yourself, well, what is it that's actually happening? What is this scene telling me? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just worry and get fearful and anxious and cry. But for most of us, when there's something that happens, we ask ourselves the question, well, what's actually going on? What is the scene trying to tell me? Well, I think on a personal level, when we see the emptiness of spirit today, then we wonder, well, what's happened? And so that's on a personal level. And when we look conditions of the world outside, and we see the world really, really topsy-turvy. Again, we ask the question, what's going on? And I think that there's a very simple answer. We've forgotten about the most important relationship that exists throughout history and through all ages and across the universe. And that is the relationship with God. And so all the signals that are coming to us from many different directions tell us that it's time again to focus on that relationship with the divine. Do that. What I have to do is to firstly discover my own identity, the identity of the inner being. And in that awareness, I can also then open myself to the presence and experience of the divine. Why? Because my own eternal identity is not a physical one. It's a spiritual identity. I am spirit, not matter. I am the inner being, the being of light. And whilst I think I am this body interferes in my connection with God. When I transcend the awareness of the body and come to the awareness of the spirit, then I can be in contact with the being who has no physical form, who doesn't have any corporeal form, but is the source of light, of love, the supreme. And so I think that as we reconnect and discover our own inner treasures through the presence of the treasures of the divine that are available for us, the things that have gone wrong in our world can very easily be put right again. I don't think that's impossible. I think that that is our mission at this moment in history. Which brings me to the sixth key of happiness. And that is, it's time to share. Once I discover the treasures that God is making available for me, the treasures that I have within myself, what must I do? Share that peace. Let me share that love. Let me share a little of that happiness. And what will happen very beautifully is that it'll multiply and it'll come. There's that exists in the East and the West. And that is that in giving, there is receiving. And we've heard it the whole of our life, but I'm not sure that we actually believe it. Because if we believed it, then there'd be a lot more giving than would be going. That it's actually very, very true. When I give a little bit of my time to somebody and show some care and compassion for them, the blessings that I get from them leave me with a great deal of contentment. I could have spent that time just going off and playing tennis, but if instead of that, give a little bit of my time to share and care for someone, now the contentment that I feel is a very different one than it would have been otherwise. How often is it that you share words of inspiration and encouragement with people around you? You walk into work and you get on with your work, and yes, you've done your work with honesty and integrity, and you get your paycheck, and you think you've done everything fine and it's okay. And yes, it is okay. but it could be a lot more than that. I walk into work, and instead of just rushing to my desk, it takes no more extra time to smile at the colleagues around me. How much time does it take to smile? Or if I can see that here's somebody who's usually happy, light, and smiling, and today I don't see a smile on their face, and I say to them, come, let's have a cup of coffee together, let's have a chat. Well, how much did that cost me? The cost of a cup of coffee? Well, that's not a big deal if it's going to give them a chance to open up their hearts, and maybe this is what they were waiting for somebody just to come along and say, come, I'm willing to listen. Share your story with me. I remember some years ago when I was in South Africa, I'm trying to think whether it was a Zulu woman or somebody from another tribe, but one of the women in South Africa, she said to me, within our culture, you don't ask a person, how are you? I was a bit surprised. And she said, if you ask a person, how are you? You have to be genuinely willing to listen to their story. You catch it, don't you? You know, for us, it's a sort of curtsy. How are you? And the normal response you expect is, oh, I'm fine. And you would be very shocked if the person said to you, I'm feeling absolutely awful. And if they did, what would you do? Would you just say to them, okay, it'll be fine? Or would you say, okay, come, let's have a chat and talk about it? Now you can see why within that particular culture in Africa, if you ask the person, how are you? You make sure that you've got an hour to listen to their story. But maybe it's not going to cost me an hour. Maybe it's just really a few words that they need. A few words of encouragement, a few words of comfort. But you can see how doing something for another, of course it's of benefit for them, but more than that, it's of benefit to myself. It's going to be bringing me their blessings and leaving me with that feeling of warmth and comfort that, yes, things are going the right way. I'm moving in the right direction in my own life, in the way that I should be going. And so the sixth step is a step of learning to give. It's become a culture in which we've forgotten about giving. You know, even Christmas, on the one side you'd say that, well, of course it's a culture of giving. Not really. If I've sent out 100 cards and I only get 10 cards back in return, I'll feel devastated. It won't have been the thought that counts, in which I've said, you know, really, out of my feeling of love and friendship, I remembered you at this time of goodwill and good feelings. And so, in everything we do, there's a little calculation that's going on, consciously or unconsciously. But the spirit of giving is something else, in which, firstly, yes, what I have, let me share. I can share my time, I can share good wishes, good feelings, encouragement, all of this. But there's something even more that I can do. And that is become an instrument.
And in that, I let my ego get out of the way, in which I think I can do something for another. And I simply become an instrument to be able to share peace that only God can give. If I'm aware and I'm in the remembrance of God, then I can share the peace that God can give. If I'm receiving the love that God gives and I share God's love, then that's a very different quality of love that seeks absolutely no return. It's totally unconditional and not judgmental. And it's something that as I give, definitely it multiplies and it comes back to me, not only from the one receiving it, but also from the one above. So I get double benefit from that. And so to be able to give and become an instrument to be able to give. Try it even just a little, and you'll begin to get addicted to it. You'll begin to see how many blessings it brings you and what a joy it brings. And so your life is filled with constant happiness each moment of the way. The last key, and it's the recognition of time. They say that there's a time and season for everything. And I believe that's true. In England, we now get strawberries throughout the year. But the strawberries we get in December are not as sweet as the strawberries you get in June. And the reason is that the strawberries you get in December have been grown under artificial conditions, and so they don't carry the same sweetness. And the ones that have been ripened in the natural light of the day in the sun, they're very sweet. There's a season. And I believe that at this time when there's actually more suffering, more misery, and more pain in the world than there ever has been before in human history. I believe that that is a fact. Some people say to me, well, it's because we know about the scenes of what's happening globally, and in the past we didn't know. No. A situation in which every single country is impacted and affected by sorrow in some way or another. Whether it's mental, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual, it feels as if everyone is wounded. It feels that on some level, there's a scar that everyone is carrying. I believe that it's the season now for healing. And so let me be able to allow God's love to heal me. And let me be an instrument to be able to give time and heal others. It is the season to be able to take God's love and compassion and to be able to change the culture of the world and create a culture of compassion and cooperation. And I believe the world is ready for that. I think the events of last year and the events of all the disasters that we keep hearing about, now I don't think there's anybody who can deny the subject of the abuse of the environment that human beings have afflicted, or climate change. I was driving from London to Oxford just recently, and the person who was with me said, and he must be in his 50s, and he said that in all my years, I've never seen such torrential rainfall in England. Because we started the journey and it was okay, a little bit of drizzle, And then towards the end of the journey, it was torrential rainfall. And England is a pleasant green land most of the time because it rains most of the time. There's usually grey skies, but not torrential rainfall. And for that last stretch of about 20 minutes, there was literally torrential rainfall. And he said, well, how can anyone not believe in climate change? It's a reality that we're witnessing. So those are the external things. But I believe that the external things are a signal to make us think in a different way, to make us ask the question, is there an alternative to the way in which we have been living? And I believe that from the paradigm of commercialism, of consumerism, materialism, the season now is a return to spirituality. And when I recognize that it's the season for this, and I do what the season demands at that moment, when it's a season for planting, I plant. When it's a season for harvesting, I harvest. And if I try to harvest at the wrong time, well, things are going to go crazy. Or if I try to plant at the wrong time, again, nothing's going to happen. And so first to recognize the season, and then to benefit from it, to take advantage of it, means that things can move in the right way. So the season, the time now, is to turn to spirituality, because I believe that that really is the only answer for the troubles of our time, and for the way in which we can be able to create happiness for ourselves, but also create happiness for everyone around us. One discontented person, and you know what your home feels like, or you know what your office feels like. And one person with genuine happiness, not an artificial smile, but genuine happiness, and they're able to spread ripples of that happiness around them wherever they may be. Will you remember the 7 keys? I won't test you. But if you remember at least 3 of those keys, turning inwards, turning upwards, and turning outwards, sharing. Okay? So even if you don't remember 7 points, you can remember 3. That's easy. Let's open up for questions or comments.
We are ready to accept questions from the guests.
From Dr. Solano, she was asking, is Brahma Kumaris a religion?
Brahma Kumaris is a spiritual organization, and we are known as the Brahma Kumaris Spiritual University. When we started in 1937, the founder had a vision of a better world, and he realized that a better world could only come about if there were better human beings, right? And better human beings could happen in a very simple way, just simply through a change of consciousness, a change of heart. And that would happen through education. And so we're a spiritual university where we study the spiritual laws of the universe. And we have centers in 120 countries worldwide, which takes in every continent, every race, every religion, you name it. And there's a center there. And it just indicates that people everywhere are ready for spirituality. And the connection between spirituality and religion, let me explain. Every religion has at its heart spirituality. But when we forget about the essence and then we go into the externals of scripture, of rituals, of all the external things that people get into, then we lose contact with that spirituality. And so what's happening now is that people of all traditions and all religions are coming to the Brahma Kumaris to learn meditation, to learn how to contemplate, to learn how to experience that connection with the divine.
There's a very interesting question from a young person, and she asks, can you still grow and learn if all you experience is happiness in your life?
The very process of making sure that I keep my feelings of health and well-being filled with happiness is a tremendous process of learning and growing. It teaches me acceptance, tolerance, flexibility, understanding, compassion, and see that it's many things that you learn as you move towards that state in which you constantly keep your feelings filled with good health and happiness. And so definitely, yes, there's the fast track for learning if I choose to do that.
Sister Jayanti, here's another interesting question. How long do you think will it take to search one's happiness using the 7 keys? And since each person have different tapestry.
For me, the first day that I learned about the knowledge of the self, the soul, and how mind and consciousness and conscience and personality and memory are all connected and the treasures are there. I point here because the location of the soul, this point of energy, is here. So the first day that I learned this lesson, that was it. I thought I'd really discovered a new world, a world of such happiness. And then it's taken 41 years to continue to maintain that and learn many lessons along the way. But you discover the beauty of happiness very quickly if that's what you choose to do.
One of the guests is asking, you please comment on this, Sister Jayanti. There is no right or wrong. There are only lessons to be
I agree with both things. In the sense that, yes, everything that I've done has taught me a lesson. And so I agree with that completely. But yet, within the bigger picture, there are things that are right and there are things that are wrong. You know, you have a state where there are certain values and morals that you have in life, and people believe in those and observe those in a natural way. There's no external imposition. Then there comes a time when you recognize what morals and values are, and yet society becomes immoral. You go against those values that you hold and those moral standards that have been set. And then there comes a stage in which there's even denial that there's such a thing as right and wrong. And then it's a statement that, well, it's personal choice, it's personal awareness, and there isn't such a thing as right and wrong. But I believe that that's what's called an amoral society. And I believe that that's where we are today, both on a personal level, but also on an international level. in the sense that a country like India, I'll speak about India because it's my home country, country I was born in, but the scenario is the same for, I think, 99% of the rest of the countries of the world. India spends trillions on armaments, and that which is wrong is considered to be right. And even a fraction of that spent on poverty, eliminating malnourishment for children, providing education for children, would create a better society within the space of 10 years. And so I believe that is amoral. It is a state where right is being called wrong and wrong is being called right, or it's being said there is no such thing as right and wrong. It's a matter of personal choice and convenience. Now, I've stated a story about India, but translate that into most of the countries that you know about and the budgets that are being spent on armaments. Now, that's, in a way, an external story because it's governmental, political, and all of those things. But even in our personal lives, just simply as a matter of convenience, there are things that we'll do in which we'll say, well, it doesn't really matter. But it does. There's repercussion of everything. There's cause and there's effect. And if today our physical health isn't as it should be, and 99% of people, that's a fact, if our spiritual health isn't as it should be, and again, 99%, I'd say that's true, if our emotional health isn't as it should be, there's something wrong. Cause and effect. And what I hope this evening has done is really to make people understand that there are linkages, there are connections, that nothing happens just by chance. If there's something that's going on, there's a reason behind it. And if today I want happiness, there are ways to be able to find happiness. And if today I don't have happiness, there are reasons why I don't have happiness. And I don't just mean a happiness that comes from seeing the beauty of nature for a moment, or the beauty of a beautiful scene or a picture or whatever it may be, but a happiness which is inherent within me, which is my own inner treasure. And if I don't have that, and I don't maintain it, and I don't share it with others, what's gone wrong? Let me find out. There are things that are good, and there are things that are bad. And it's become fashionable to say that whatever you do is fine, there's no such thing as good, no such thing as bad. But I believe that if there is something that's good, then the outcome of it is happiness for the self and happiness for others. And if there's something which is not good, then it's going to cause me grief, but it's also going to cause pain to others around me. And so, yes, there are good choices and bad choices. And the way to be able to deal with it for the future is, let me pause for a moment and go inside, connect with the one above. And in that, it takes only a split moment. It's not a question of half an hour. But even in that split moment of going inside and connecting, you know what is right, you know what is wrong. And in terms of the things that I've done in the past, which today I look back and I say, if only I hadn't, or I wish it were different. I don't think it's useful to carry the burden of guilt, but it's important to have realization and to make amends for whatever it is I've done, whether it is to seek God's forgiveness, or if it's possible to connect with those human beings to seek their forgiveness, and in that way, to be able to learn from the lessons of the past and move forward.
There is a second question here, Sister Chelly. It says that one of the keys to happiness is choice. Do you believe, destiny. Do you believe that we have a common destiny?
It's interesting because I believe that there's collective destiny and there's also individual destiny, and both things run together, which means that at the present moment, the conditions of the world that we find ourselves in are not the creation of one human being, but it's our creation altogether, and nobody can be free from the responsibility of that. And so it's our collective destiny to be in the world in which the conditions are the way they are. And so equally for the future, and I believe that the future is one in which there's happiness, truth, and love. I believe that collectively our destiny is to create that world of beauty and truth. And within that, just as the night turns to day, there's no question about it. In the same way, definitely, the future of the world is a very beautiful one. I have absolute conviction. But what is my contribution to creating such a world? Now, that destiny is my own personal choice, and I can give my time, my thoughts, my energy, my skills, my talents, my resources to that. Or I can choose to ignore it and say, well, I'm fine, I'm comfortable, and let me carry on with my life. And my life won't be comfortable for very much longer, but I can make that choice and say, well, let me ignore the rest of the world and just carry on. And so individual destiny and collective destiny, both are very much connected.
I guess this is my last question from this side. It says one of the keys to happiness is recognition of time. How can you respond with happiness to Apocalypse, Revelation, Armageddon, which is the sign of the times? Please, can you comment on that, please?
Nothing ever comes to an end in nature. What seems to be an end is also the start of something new. When it's winter, and I know the Philippines has its own cycle of nature, but certainly in the Western Hemisphere, the Northern Hemisphere generally, you have seasons that are very specific. And in winter, there isn't a single leaf to be seen on a tree. And you wonder, everything seems dead. But yet, within the space of a few weeks, a few months, you again begin to see the beautiful buds appear. And the green colors of spring are incredible. The green colors of summer are very different. But the beauty of the freshness of the green leaves of spring are magical. My point is that there's never an end. It's only the start of something else. And so the soul is eternal, God is eternal, nature is eternal, this drama of the world is eternal. And so what appears to be today a scene of huge tragedy for humanity is not so. It's actually a process of transformation. And beyond that, there is a world which is a fresh, beautiful, virgin, green world, which will be the world of human beings. But the process will have been one in which the earth has gone through a cleansing, human souls have gone through a transformation, and have allowed the divine to touch them and transform them and recreate them, so that our own divinity is also emerged and expressed. So what I need to do today is not be afraid, not be anxious or worried about what's going to happen. What I need to do today is to go through those 7 keys. And what I will have done in that process is allow my own divinity to emerge, but also I'll have used my time, my skills, my energy in a constructive, worthwhile way to help others around me, so that together we create the foundation of that better world, which is definitely ahead of us.
If man is made for happiness, which I agree, and I agree with most of your talk, is there a cause of evil? Why there is so much evil? And why, in fact, we can see in the history of humanity, man always desire for peace and happiness, since Plato, Aristotle, and all the great thinker in the world. But always man was looking for happiness, and some has found this happiness in within, as you said, and we can find it for ourselves at some point, at some moment. But where come from this evil that man is doing? Is there another cause? And if man is looking for happiness, why he cannot succeed in it? Is it possible that man can save himself by himself, only if he wants?
I believe the cause of evil is ignorance, it's lack of understanding. And the first ignorance that starts is the lack of awareness of who I am. And so when I forget about my own spiritual identity and I come into the consciousness of matter, the physical body, from that moment on, I lose contact with the treasures that I have within. And the more we get into the consciousness of the physical form, and it's something you can see right in front of your eyes, ego, anger, greed, attachment, lust, jealousy, competition, all of these things begin. And so the cause of evil is ignorance of the self. And all of these evils come as a result of that. And I don't think that we can transform the whole scene just by ourselves. I think it needs God's help, God's power to be able to do this, which is why I believe that it's so important, yes, to come back to the awareness of the self, but also through that awareness then to make a relationship with God real in my life, to create that link of thoughts, of love, of connection with the divine. And then from there, from the source of love and power and truth, I'm able to receive that in my life and be able to transform myself. And so I believe that this is what is possible now at this moment. In the past few thousands of years, we've been searching, but there comes a time when we are given the fruit of our search. And because this is the time when it's like humanity has hit a wall, we can't go any further the way we've been going. We're ready for an alternative. We're ready for an answer. And I believe this is the time for that.
Acts Alive and a participant of the International Peace of Mind Retreat in Mount Abu, together with Mr. Singh Salon, Regional Sales Manager of Locked On International to please present our token of appreciation. Please give them a round of applause. We would like, thank you. At this point, we would like you to experiment with a meditation experience, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. We'd like to request you to please, again, turn off your cell phones. Give yourself a favor. Sister Jayanti is going to lead us through a meditation commentary.
Let yourself sit comfortably, relaxed, balanced, both feet on the ground, and your back upright so that you stay alert. And I'm going to speak out my own thoughts as I meditate and invite you to follow these ideas in your own mind. Sitting quietly, I decide to let the world outside stay out there. And I go on a journey inside. I look at the thoughts in my mind. And simply watching my thoughts slows down the speed. And now I can select the thought I would like to have. I select the thought of peace. I hold peace in my mind. And in this awareness of peace, you go deeper and deeper into the experience. I can feel the sacred presence of the divine. And in this awareness, I connect with the source of light, the supreme, the being of light. And I find myself surrounded by light. It is the light of love. It is the light of truth. And in this awareness, the truth within myself awakens. I had been ignoring the voice of my own inner conscience, and in the presence of God's light of truth, this awakens. And I realize that as I start listening to it, It'll guide me.